Hello, thank you for joining us. I'm the ESA Student Section President, and I'm pleased to introduce Ajisha Alwyn. She's our web social media marketing extraordinaire, and today she'll be guest speaking and talking to us about how to use LinkedIn as a professional platform. So take it away, Ajisha.
Thanks, Callie, and thanks so much for that intro. Thank you so much for doing this because I didn't want to introduce myself. But yeah, and hi everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. And today we're going to be talking about how to create and maintain a professional LinkedIn profile, a topic that has become more and more necessary as we move to a virtual platform in the middle of a global pandemic. And again, this is part of the ESA Student Section's How To series, and this is our third webinar in the series, if I'm not wrong. I'm not. The first two were academic Twitter and academic blogging. So now today we're going to talk about how to create and maintain a professional LinkedIn profile and how to use it as a scientist. So before that, about me, I didn't realize I would have to actually come to a point where I have to do this for an ESA webinar. But my name is Ajisha Alwyn, and like Callie said, I'm the Marketing Outreach Director of the ESA Student Section currently. And I do a lot of these things, and I usually host these webinars. So I do have a bachelor's in clinical psychology and cognitive sciences. I'm a current biomedical researcher studying viruses and immune responses. Really a good topic for this time. And then what I do is we look at virus microbiota interactions and host immune responses, and that's what I do right now. I am applying to PhD programs currently, so I'm a PhD applicant. But this is one side of things. I'm also involved in research for science education, which more ties in with my studies with ESA. So I have a study with ESA where I research what skills students develop during undergraduate field research programs and how that compares to what employers would expect from students when they hired them for entry-level positions. And this is something that I've been working on with ESA. I also have professional profiles on Twitter and on LinkedIn, and I'm a big advocate for science communication, career development, and DEI. So most of my posts, especially in my Twitter account, are all going to be focused on academic scientific issues. And in career development, I would always share resources for CV writing, any sort of academic writing, and then application prep, and anything that relates to mostly grad school right now, because I myself am going through the process. So I like to share all contents relevant to that, and also research in my field. So this is me, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit more about LinkedIn, a platform that is actually my first social media platform that I've been using for a really long time, even before I started undergrad. And of course, I stress on the professionalism there, and I'll just talk about what I know so far from using LinkedIn, and also what new features LinkedIn has that could be useful for you as a scientist. So before I begin, why LinkedIn? And before even that, what is LinkedIn? So LinkedIn is a virtual networking and discussion platform. So why should you use it? I think I have those in reverse order here, going from like networking, scouting jobs and other opportunities, and then sharing your professional achievements and research. I have this in reverse order. So the second two, like the scouting jobs and other opportunities and networking, are really what LinkedIn is like well known for and what people usually use it for. But as a scientist, LinkedIn also offers you a space where you can share your professional achievements, like your coursework, honors and awards that you received within your fields, and most importantly, your research, your projects, your papers that you published, and then sharing them with professionals in your peer group. This is why you should use LinkedIn. And in this webinar, I'm going to be talking about 4 main topics. So there's going to be creating your LinkedIn profile, adding connections, and then sharing your profile, and then searching for opportunities, last but not least. So let's go ahead and get started. So first thing is creating your profile. So creating a profile, like any other social media platform, is really simple. So you have to create a LinkedIn account. There is a paid version, which I'll get into a little later in like our 4th topic on when you look for jobs. There's a premium version that you can pay for. And then the second thing is you add your information, you build your profile picture, your bio, your header, your education, your experience, and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm going to be talking about them in a little bit more detail about each section in your profile and how you can, best, make them. And then customize your profile elements. Again, you are projecting yourself as an individual and a professional, so your profile should reflect who you are. So I'm going to talk a little bit more like for each section as to how you can customize it as a scientist. So let's take a look. And again, this is an example of a LinkedIn profile, and this is mine. Again, I have my header. I keep this is the same header I use for my Twitter profile as well. So this is my professional header. It encompasses what my degree is and what I do and all the work that I do. And then of course my name, is my full name, my degree, and my pronouns. This is something that I find important for me to represent and to tell people that these are my pronouns. And again, this is representing me as an individual as well as a professional. So it's important that you add elements that you feel are representative of you. And again, this part is a headline, and where you add what your current position is and what you're currently doing. So for me, that's being a researcher at the University of Florida College of Medicine, where I currently work, and ESA. So of course, there's a lot of things you can do with a profile, but this is like the regular, I guess, immediate first things you would do when you start to create a LinkedIn profile. And again, there's a lot of things that I hear about the photo. Again, try to make it as professional as possible, but not everybody has the opportunity to take a headshot. So again, anything that best describes you and your profession and what you've done in your profession would be a best example. There's a lot of like conflicting opinions, especially like among scientists, on what your profile picture should be. But again, I would stress, as I would do everywhere across in this webinar, keep it professional, but that does not necessarily mean a headshot. So whatever best represents you, and this is a picture from a year ago, but it's the only closest thing to a headshot that I had. So it's up to you. So the next thing, next section is the about section. Now here is where you want to express who you are and what you're looking for. And really, this is like your summary on your CV or your resume, where you like say, okay, this is what I want, and this is who I am, and this is what I bring to whatever opportunity or position you apply for. So for me, there are like 3 components. And again, this is one of those places where you need to update it. Making sure it's the best representative of who you are, especially if you're actively applying for jobs, and you're in a position that uses a lot of LinkedIn, that has a significant amount of social engagement on LinkedIn. You want to make sure you keep it updated, especially if you're having a lot of professionals in your field to look at your LinkedIn profile. You want to make sure this is a place where you are keeping yourself most updated. Again, my second part here talks about what I'm doing right now. So I'm looking for doctoral programs and lab positions in those related to immunology, which is my field. And then looking for that, and then I talk about my areas of interest. And then I talk about what I bring, and then it's just one catchy sentence. So it's up to you. And this is where you really customize your profile. Again, your profile, and this webinar is going to largely focus on how you have a professional individual profile. And again, people might use their LinkedIn profiles to talk about their work, their other nonprofit work, or their organizational work, or their initiatives that they've started. And all of those would go under here. So whatever you want your account to do, whatever you want your profile to be like, all of those you can exemplify in your about section. Like, what is your profile about and who are you? So that's the about section. You can play around with it. So the next section, this is one of my, I think this is my hands down favorite section, is the featured section. So the featured section is something I discovered recently, actually. That is a section where you have the opportunity to feature these posts, or so you have an option. You can upload documents, certificates, honors, awards. You can also feature some of the posts. So this is the place where I would put the post of like today's event, for example. I would take that post and I would feature it on my board here. And you can reorder them as you like. And again, this is another place you need to keep it updated. Like, put your most recent first, and this is the thing they're going to first see. I think the first 3 or 4 is what's going to be first shown, depending upon what their screen size is. But this is a place where you can definitely have a lot of flexibility and showcase your work and what you've actually done recently. I have my CV uploaded. And another thing when I would talk about when updating, keeping yourself updated, when you upload a CV, make sure you say this is updated at so-and-so date. So the person who looks at it will know this is accurate at this date. Things change, and especially during a pandemic, things might change with your CV. You might get new information, you might not get time to put that up there. But if they can see what date you uploaded it and then what day you updated it, and they would know, okay, this CV associates with this date. Excuse me. And the other things is like course certifications, any documentation you have. Other things I have on my featured are, some project management course evaluations that people have given to me. And I think that, really showcase the work that I've done in that course and the evaluations that I've received that could talk to your professional capability. So that's the other things, some of the other things you can put on your feature section. Of course, if you have publications, all of those could go under here as well. Whatever you want to think is the best representative of you. The next section, again, this is a very I guess most CV-like section in LinkedIn is your experience section. So the experience section, on the left, as you can see, you can have all these different types of work that would go under here. And again, and as a scientist, especially as a student scientist, a lot of the work that you might have done might have been as a volunteer and not as a paid position. Again, those would still go under the experience, as either an internship or part-time. You because they still count as experience. There's a different section for volunteering, and other leadership experiences that you might have had, but they all go under your experience section. So, and again, you want to, so as a student and as a student with only those experiences, those do count as your research experience. So it doesn't matter if there was voluntary or if you were paid to do it, it's still an experience. And again, when on the right, you see my experience here. Oh, a couple of those: my current lab, what I do, keywords, and the techniques that I've been using, and then other roles that I've had during my time in the lab. And then, with ESA, I have the research investigator, marketing outreach. All of these things are things you want to highlight in your description. And at the same time, you have that freedom to pick and choose what you want to add as an experience. So all of these things do count as experiences. And again, I really would like to stress again that volunteering positions, especially as a research scientist, are your experience. They are research experiences. While you might not see them here, they would fall under at least one of these categories, like either part-time, internship, or something like that, and add those. Because professionals typically tend to frown from volunteering experience if you list them as your research experiences as your volunteering experience, because they have a separate section for those. So volunteering section, you would use it more so for outreach work, other things that you've done outside of academia and outside of your research field. So that is one thing I would like to add here with the experience section. And again, I would be happy to answer any specific questions from this section later on in the Q&A session. The next section is the education section. Again, this is another place where you showcase your education. There, I like to group these two sections, the education and the licenses and certification section, together, because they all, kind of point towards what you've done. So for the education section, and again, I have been using LinkedIn for a really long time, so I still have my high school diploma on here, and it's fine. Again, that's the beauty of LinkedIn. It's not your CV, so you can have, dating back to as long as you want. And because you just keep adding to it as time goes, and you can move it up and down, and it'll always show up in chronological order. So people, when they look at your LinkedIn profile, they will only see your recent first. So they might not even read up to your high school diploma, but it's always nice to have that on there as well, especially if you have like a concentration you took in high school or something like that. You have the freedom of having a description for every education. So if you had a minor, if you, let's say, graduated summa cum laude or cum laude, you can add those on there. So I have my GPAs on there. UCF GPA and then CGPA. So I also added this internship program. While this was only a semester long, this was an academic program that I attended and graduated from. So this goes under education for me. I was really conflicted whether I should add it under licensing certifications or if I should add it under education, but then I went with education because it's an academic program. So licensing certifications, what I would add here is courses, like online courses you've taken that certify you for certain things. So for ecologists, let's say, I know people who are taking GIS certifications, something that is relevant to an online course. Another thing I would add here is that certifications that you get from a university. So a certificate that you get from a university is different from a certification. So certificates that you get from a university would go under your education, not under your licenses and certifications. So I guess, I don't know what exact word to use, because there are university certificates, academic certificates that you get from doing these coursework. Those would go under education, something that would add to your GPA. So those would all go under your education, not under your licenses and certifications. The ones here are just really one course certifications for specific skills that you would have taken. So I have my best practices of a biomedical research data management, project management course, technical certificate. All these would go under here. Some things that are not associated with an academic program, but something you did outside of it to get a specialization. So those would go there. And again, these two are the places where you would like to showcase whatever it is that you've done, even if they're not relevant to your current career path. LinkedIn is a place where you can put it all in the same spot. And you can use tools like, moving it up and down feature to highlight which ones you want them to see first. And the next thing, again, this is another thing where it's showcase your work. And this is another thing that's I think is really useful to scientists is the skills and accomplishments section. And here's where I know I was talking to Callie earlier about why scientists don't tend to use LinkedIn a lot. LinkedIn, a lot of the times they follow up around like skills and endorsements. Endorsements I will talk about a little bit more when we talk about connections and how endorsements really work. But you can add all these skills that you think you have, and on here, and then endorsements will really like validate that you have all these skills and other people have witnessed you having these skills. So for me, I put in immunology, program development, human subjects research. I have also other skills I've put on are like qPCR, other cell culture things that I do on in the lab. All of those would go under my skills. And then the accomplishments, here's I like the section a lot because you have a lot of leeway here. Yeah, the honors and awards that you can add, like dean's list, president's list, whatever you've had, another awards that you might have received during your undergrad or early career, or wherever you are in your career path. All of those would go under there. And again, I'm still conflicted on like the quantity of how many awards you want to put on here. But at the end of the day, your CV is what they're going to see first, especially if you're an academic and you're a scientist. That's what they're going to look at first. They are going to look at your LinkedIn for seeing what other stuff you've done, mostly, because your CV is going to be representative of what's most relevant. So I don't think the quantity really matters. Although if you have like some that date back more than 4 years, you might want to think about taking them off because you want to limit your quantity as much as you can. And the second part of accomplishments is projects you've worked on. Here you have flexibility. So these could be research projects you have, individually, done, or research projects you've collaborated with other labs on, other projects you've worked on, programs you've worked on, and you've actively been a part of. So for me, I worked on a lot of projects when I was working with ESA. So those all go here. Other initiatives that I've started, all of those will go here. If you're doing a lot of outreach work, science communication work, all of those would go under your projects that you've done. And the other thing, and it's not shown here, is publications. That's another section. And there you can put all of your papers that you might have published. If you don't have papers, and highlight them in the projects that you did in the project section. So publications, if you have them, and in the description, link them back, or I don't think you can link them back, so you can just specify which project it's associated with, which research project is the paper for. And as maybe a brief abstract about the paper would also help people understand what the paper really is about. And for the projects, before I move on, I did want to mention one other thing is that for the projects, especially when I mentioned the research projects that you might not have publications for, you can definitely, if you have oral presentations at conferences, you can add those there. You can say, I presented this at so-and-so conference. And then if you have a conference abstract for that talk or that poster that you can put in there, that will help them understand, okay, they have presented this work somewhere, and this is the work that they've done. So that's another way you can highlight it if you don't have a lot of publications, which, especially if you're applying to grad school, not a lot of people do. So this is another way you can highlight what experience you already have. So next topic, adding connections. And again, this is again one of the major things that LinkedIn is used for, to make professional connections. And I like to talk about 3 things. Start with your immediate colleagues. And this is the same way that I would ask for any other social media. Start with the people you know. The people you're familiar with, the people who know you, start with them, and then start expanding from there, from people you work with, and expand to people who are working in the same department as you, same university as you, and then it keeps getting broader, and that's how you broaden your network. And then add people of shared interests. Again, these are people you might meet at a conference, a webinar, a meeting, somewhere you're in your professional career, you might have come you might have met them, or you might have had somebody else talk about them. And especially here, this is where it's very important. When you are an academic and a scientist, a lot of your jobs revolve around contacting PIs, especially when you're in research. So if you're adding them on LinkedIn, when you send them a connection request, add a little note saying that this is why I want to connect with you. I read about your research. I'm interested in working with you. So add that personalization and then follow up. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that when I talk about the connections and how you can find them. But particularly when you send requests to professionals you think you might want to work with, or you think you are going to work with, definitely add a note. That really gives you a more distinct and professional touch to your request, and the fact that they think that, okay, this person cares about what I've done, so I'm going to accept that request and keep that connection going. So expand your network and engage. And here, a lot of places where you can do that is like follow pages, and particularly groups. LinkedIn groups are now a great way to join discussions. You can follow hashtags. Talk a little bit more about that in a bit, but these are different ways that you can add your connections and expand your network. It's not that hard. So first thing, finding and managing connections. This is an example. So this is my page again. So you have this My Network tab, and you have all these fun things on the left side. So manage your network. You see the number of connections you have, teammates, contacts. Contacts, I think, for me, my LinkedIn account is linked to my professional Gmail account. So all of the contacts from there will be like in my contacts list. And I'm in groups and then events pages. So LinkedIn works very similar to other social media platforms like Facebook. So navigating LinkedIn, if you know how to use social media, should be fairly easy. And it works the same way. Like Facebook shows you like suggestions for events that are happening at this time that you might be interested in. LinkedIn takes it from the skills that you have put in the roles that you've had before, and the groups that you've followed. So then that's how they kind of suggest all these things. And I think you can see in the bottom here, LinkedIn also suggests people that you might know from your places of work. So that's really how you can expand your network and follow up with different people. So groups, there are LinkedIn groups, but you can also create messaging groups for your colleagues. We do those, and especially people you might not see regularly, even now. LinkedIn chat groups might be an interesting way to collaborate and talk with about really diverse bunch of people. So that is what I have for finding and managing connections. I think next we can go, and this is something I talked about before, is LinkedIn groups. So LinkedIn groups, these are places where you can connect with people with similar interests. Doesn't matter if they're in your direct career line. So mine, as you can see, most of my groups are going to be in microbiology, immunology. This is where I network with other professionals who are in the same field as I am, and this is where I learn new research. So the posts are mostly research and other opportunities that are, conferences, webinars, and all that stuff. So it's very, very specific to a field. So, for you, it might be different. You might be in a different field, ecology. So there are several different groups. I'm also in the Ecological Society of America group, which again, because I'm an ESA. So this is another group that you can join. You can also join like membership organizations that you're a part of, like scientific organizations. They most likely will have a group associated with their organization on LinkedIn, and then you can go ahead and join them. We do not have one at the ESA student section yet. Maybe we'll see one later, maybe not. But but ESA does have one with like about 13,000 members. So that's a really great place to start off with networking. And you can see not only the work that ESA is doing, like the events that ESA hosts and the opportunities that ESA has, but also what their members have too. So if you become a member, you can post on there. So I'm also a member at my university's group, the Gator Nation. And then we have a PhD career networking group that I am part of. And the UFERN Undergraduate Field Experience Research Network is one of the collaborators on my ESA research study. So my groups are very customized to what I want to see in my feed, and also who I am engaging in discussions with. Again, this is another thing that I would stress. Again, we all have our time. Time management is really important. You do not want to spend way too much time on LinkedIn unless you are using this as a central platform for promoting yourself or actively searching jobs or for your initiative that you have. You want to make sure you're managing your time well when you're on LinkedIn, especially if it's not the primary platform of use for you. So I'm telling you all these different things, but the primary thing is to have your profile and to keep it updated. These are all things you can engage in the LinkedIn community, but at the same time, I would caution a mindfulness of time, especially since you don't want to get too carried away with this. Twitter already does that for me, and I want LinkedIn to do it too. So these are some ways you can connect. Let's see. So the next thing we want to talk about is sharing content on your profile. So again, like I mentioned before, LinkedIn works very similar to other social media platforms like Facebook, including when it comes to posting. I actually like LinkedIn a little better than Facebook and Twitter when it comes to posting, because whenever I type in content, it automatically suggests a wide range of hashtags that I can use to engage a conversation. And that really, I don't have to go and type it in. It automatically gives me everything. So I really like that aspect of LinkedIn posting. Again, another thing when I talk about posting, and I'll talk about it a little later, is that you can feature your posts. especially if they're associated with an event, you can feature them. And you can also add an event, create an event yourself on LinkedIn. So there's a lot of flexibility. It works really similar to Facebook. So you if you know how to use Facebook and you know how to do all these things there, you'll be able to do this for LinkedIn as well. So using tags for individual accounts and hashtags for discussion topics. So for me, sometime I might follow like immunology research or virology research, and that will give me that discussion where I want to enter if I'm looking for, engaging in an active discussion at that time. So it depends on what you want to do, and these are different ways you can approach and use LinkedIn for as a professional network. So the other thing that is really major is to share your profile on your resume and CV. I always add a link to my LinkedIn profile on my resume and my CV, and this gets sent out everywhere. Again, this is another thing I would, and this ties back into my point about updating your profile. If you're sending your LinkedIn profile on your CV or resume to any person that you're applying to, they are going to click on it. And even if somebody Googles your name, LinkedIn ranks really high on the Google search results. It should pop up right like below Twitter or something like that. So you want to make sure that when they look at your LinkedIn profile, they can see something representative of what your CV is, your personal statement is. They want to see you updated on there as well, if you share that with them particularly. So that if you're going to share it, make sure you keep it updated on a timely basis. And that's about one thing that I would definitely like to stress on here. Posting on LinkedIn, like I mentioned before, this is the post I made, I think it was yesterday, for this event. Again, you can share links to events, registration forms, and all of these hashtags I have down here are all suggested by LinkedIn. I did not have to do anything. I just had to click on them. So, and also you can see like the views of your post, the engagement it's been getting, and also ways you can increase engagement. There's a lot of cool functions that LinkedIn has, similar to what Facebook does. So Facebook has insights, I believe, and I think LinkedIn has view counts and other things, and that you can also have those for your profile. I haven't put an example of that here, but there's an activity page where you can actually track how many searches you appear in and how many people have viewed your profile and your posts and how much engagement your profile is really getting. So that's about posting on LinkedIn. And again, if you have any specific questions, I would be happy to answer them in the Q&A. And then last but not least, searching for opportunities. Again, as a research scientist and as in academia, there isn't really a large scope for finding opportunities, but slowly people are now moving and putting graduate opportunities, postdoctoral opportunities on LinkedIn. However, it's still really not the primary yet. So for other fields, you have these jobs that you can directly apply through LinkedIn, and that's something that I put on here as LinkedIn Easy Apply, which I would suggest, especially if you're not in academia, if you're in other sectors like private, governmental. Actually, I don't think governmental has LinkedIn Easy Apply because they have to go to a separate form. But private sectors and other organizations that lean away from research centers and academia institutions usually have this availability of LinkedIn Easy Apply, which again, if you're going to do this, you need to make sure your profile is updated, because it's going to directly funnel your profile in, and then it will give you some very specific position-specific questions or job-specific questions that you would need to answer. But it takes a really short amount of time, so it's a really good way to apply. But you need to be very careful of how you have your LinkedIn profile set up before you do this, because it's going to directly funnel into that. The other things is that, so searching for opportunities, I think I'd skip to this part, but inputting your preferred positions and location. So LinkedIn has its own job search page, and you can put in what positions you're open to working for. And then maybe if you have company preferences, you can put those in as well. And then location. So location, you can put in what locations you're open to working at. And another cool thing you can do, and that's the way you can filter jobs in your area or in your area of interest. And then the other thing you can do, and I think this is really cool for particularly people who are actively looking for jobs, is to set up a job alert for the specific criteria. So if you want to look at this particular position in this particular area, if you can set up a job alert, it will give you a ping or an email, depending on how you set it up, to say that, okay, this job has been posted in your area of interest. And then that way you can take a look at that, and it'll be much easier than actually going through LinkedIn like every day. So another thing is that saving jobs and positions you might be interested in. You're not going to apply for all the jobs you look at it in LinkedIn that pops up that you might be interested in, but save those that you think you might be interested in at a later time, because it's always, safe to have them on backup. So the saving jobs and positions really is a good, useful way to go about doing that. So these are all the things you can, search for opportunities. This is something that LinkedIn has, people use LinkedIn for a really long time, and it's really straightforward process. And I talked a little bit more about LinkedIn Easy Apply, which doesn't necessarily always apply to scientists and researchers, but it does apply for other private sector jobs that and again, ecology is about the most diverse field there is. So there's going to be people in all fields. So here is the job page. And again, here's where I'd like to talk a little bit more about, premium, which is like the paid version. Again, this is most useful for people who are actively applying for jobs and they want to see who's looking at their profile, where they stand in the applications that, because LinkedIn has those statistics that they can provide for paid members. Again, unless you are actively applying and you want to know where your positions are, and you can't email them, or you want to know where you stand in some of those positions where you can't actually contact someone, you might want to think about that. But again, I do not use it because for me, most of my jobs go through institutions, academia. So for me, this is not of use. But this can be useful for people who want to expand what they understand about what their job scope is. It gives like salary projections. There's a lot more cool features that open up when you do premium. But again, it is a personal choice. So it's up to you and what your needs are and how you would want to do it. And again, like I mentioned before, you can do your narrow down search. You can actually, and then it will automatically show you based on your profile and search history what jobs you might be interested in, not just based on the criteria. It will automatically have this list of jobs already there for you, even before you put in a search criteria. Another thing, I don't think I have it on any of the slides. Another thing you can do is put an open to work on your profile and add the positions you're open to work for and when you're willing to start and what type of job, part-time, full-time, and then what areas you're willing to work in. And this can be, you can like change the visibility to open to only recruiters, like LinkedIn recruiters that can see that if you don't want anybody else to see it. But that is a good way to do it if you're openly recruiting or casually looking. But people who, when they look at your profile, especially active recruiters who will search for you based on your skills, you definitely want to add that on your profile because that will show up to them when they click on your profile. So that is another thing that is cool that you can do with LinkedIn. Again, I will be happy to answer like more specific questions in the Q&A session, but this is what we have so far. And of course, there's a resume builder. And again, this will also show on your profile when you click on it. So when you click on how to share your profile, it'll automatically build a resume. It's not too useful for me because I have a CV and a resume is very different from a CV. But for people who are wanting to do a resume, I think you can look at it and maybe use that as a template to create your own resume or CV. So it's interesting how LinkedIn like puts those together. You might want to use it, you might not. So for LinkedIn Easy Apply, LinkedIn will send out that resume form of your profile along with that application. So that's how that works. And these are some of the cool features that LinkedIn has. And of course, I forgot to mention about endorsements. I think I'll go back to where was that? I will. Right here is fine. So endorsements, okay, never mind here. So endorsements, so you can add when you have networks, when in your network, you can see that there's a teammate option here. So you can add colleagues that you work with. And when I have added my ESA colleagues already here. So, and when your connections give you an endorsement, if they're a teammate, that will also show. So if people who try to recruit, you can see, okay, this person has worked with them for so-and-so time, and they've given an endorsement for the skill. So that is like kind of like an informal recommendation. So scouting for endorsements, I have not done that. But I know people do. And again, it can be like a small message on your LinkedIn saying like, oh, hey, you worked with me, and maybe they might even offer to do an endorsement and you might want to follow up with that. So it's up to you on how you want to scout for endorsements, but that's how endorsements work. So on your skills, they will click on it and they're like, I would like to endorse this person for this skill because I've seen them work on it. And they can, either do like highly proficient and all of that. And when you add your teammates and when your teammates give you endorsements, that will rank a little higher in the eyes of your recruiters. They're like, oh, they work with them. And then they're giving them an endorsement. So that's the last thing I did want to share about LinkedIn and some of the cool things that I know. Of course, you can ask me other questions if there need be. And a final takeaway that I would like to add here is that, again, be mindful of time and professionalism. LinkedIn is for it, but you are also an individual, and you're a person in yourself. So you can, in discussions, and I think this is where it most comes through, is like in discussions on what you post what you think is, you want to post. And of course, but at the baseline, keep it professional. But you can have your own opinions. You're a person. They would expect you to have your own opinions. Just keep it professional and civil as much as you can. And the same thing goes with every aspect of your profile. So that's the final takeaway. And then be mindful of time. That's another thing. Be very mindful of how much time you spend on LinkedIn. You don't want to spend too much, especially if you're having all these other things going on and you don't want this for you to be kind of pulled in the pool of social media. So yeah, so that's the webinar and my presentation, and let's move on to the live Q&A. All right, do we have any questions from the audience? Let's see, I do have one question. I would, so again, this would more go under like the project section that I mentioned, like publications that are in progress. Add them and say, okay, they're either in press or something like that. But I think for the publication, you might actually have an option to say that what status it's on, or you can at least put it on the description saying like, okay, this is in press, this is in progress. I already know what it's about. Let me see if I can find that. What was the other thing? Courses, yes, that would go under education depending upon where are licenses or certifications. So licenses or certifications would go under what you've already completed. So for courses that you're currently taking, I would probably put it under education. Let me take a look at that publication I was talking about. Let me take a look. But yeah, for sure, I think for publication and certificates and courses, I would definitely recommend you putting it on the education section. I'm going to take a look at if there's an option for ongoing certifications to be put on there as well. But I think, okay. Yeah, so licenses and certifications, they need an issue date. So you need to have completed them before you can add them on there. But education is a different story. Let me look at that. Publication. So there's a lot of things you can do with like the accomplishment section. You can have a publication, patent, course. So actually there's a course in the accomplishment section. So you might want to put your ongoing course there and add a description saying, okay, this is when it'll be completed, and or the certificate course that you're taking. And then when you actually get it completed, you can add it to your licenses and certification section. Let me look at publication and see what. Okay. So yeah, again, publications, it looks like it's, published work only. So I would say put them under your projects or whichever one you're doing that. All right, thank you. Let's see. So LinkedIn Learning, when we finish a course, adoption to choose further. Well, if you finish the course, yeah, I don't see a problem in putting that certificate on there. I think I took a few skills courses myself for like WordPress and other things. I would, and I think if I'm pretty sure it shows the grade. Again, it depends on you, but I think you have the option to not choose the grade as show the grade as well. If you do have that option, I don't know if that's changed, but if you want to put your certificate on there, but because it will indicate to them that you've spent time on this, and that's the most important thing of putting certificates along with whatever you've learned, like diploma, certificate, whatever it is, because it really shows them that you've spent the time to learn more about this particular skill and develop your skill. So I would definitely say go ahead and then put your certificate along with that. I would definitely recommend that. Yes. Thank you for the question. So any other questions, things that I might not have answered?
Hey, Ajisha, that was a really cool talk, and I liked all the examples and screenshots you gave. Have you ever had a productive conversation through the LinkedIn messaging app or a connection that something came out of?
Actually, yes, that's a good question. And for me, I met with a couple of the PIs. Yeah, I didn't meet them through LinkedIn, but I connected. So I saw them on Twitter, and then I sent them a request on LinkedIn. So I did talk, to a couple of PIs on LinkedIn. Of course, they did share things that they would have usually shared through an email. So this conversation term is really not that different. Of course, you would, when you're talking to PIs, you want to keep it professional and do it in an email format, respected, or good morning, and have that sincerely so and so. So, but yeah, it did become fruitful, and I also am in connect with with the professionals from my STEM course when I was an undergrad, and we connect through LinkedIn, and we're now helping in an initiative, collaborating on an initiative. So I do think LinkedIn messaging is a place for that professional development. And again, so the people that are my mentors, some of my mentors are on LinkedIn. They follow me, and they have reached out to me on collaborations based on my profile and what I've been posting and what I've been doing. So I don't think there's a good scope there. But again, Twitter, I somehow feel like I've had more engagement on Twitter because that's where I find the speakers for webinars. But again, I do think that LinkedIn has a good scope there because you engage in conversation not only on direct messaging. I also respond to posts very frequently when it comes to research posts and all of that. I do respond to those, and that's really where the conversation starts. So that's my answer. Do you have anything else to add to that, Kelly? I think you're muted.
I don't have anything to add.
All right. Great. So, is there any other question that I can answer while we're here? And this has been a great, great talk. How much time did I spend? Wow, I spent a little bit more time than I thought I would, but it was supposed to be a 1 hour webinar. So, great. All right. What else can we talk about before we end? And okay, one more question. Okay, great. That is a great question. What kind of things can you include on your profile? And I think Christine, you do professional academic blogging. That is a project you can add on your project side of things. And again, if you don't think you have that many achievements or rewards, polish and perfect your experience section. That is what I would highlight the most. And then other posts, like I know you do like your blog posts, you can share them on LinkedIn and you can feature them on your profile. So that's what they'll see first, even before they come to the awards and accomplishment section. So what they see first, it should be like that first line of impact. So if you can give them a good solid like about section, if you can give them a good solid experience section, if you can give them a good solid feature section, I don't think it would. I think when they're recruiting you, they're looking at what you're passionate about and what you've done to follow that passion. So I think having those in the projects that you worked on is really what's going to highlight you as a professional and as a potential employee. Hope that answers your question. All right, perfect. I don't know if you have any more questions, but before we do wrap this up, well, I don't know when this video is going to be posted. I will get an ETA on that tomorrow, but I did want to say that next Tuesday is going to be our governing board day. Our new governing board is going to be Tuesday, November 17th at 6 p.m. ET. So please do come and join us and check out what we've been doing, what things we have planned, exciting things we have planned, and I'm going to try to come up with a little more specific list, especially from our marketing team, on all the events that we can get going and we can share at the webinar, which will be on Facebook Live. So which will be broadcasted on Facebook Live. And I think it's going to be super cool. So I would encourage everybody to come in. And also, if you're watching this YouTube video and that event is already passed, it's going to be posted on our YouTube channel. And Callie, if you can put the YouTube channel's link on there, on the chat, if you can. So yeah, so that is our main upcoming event. We do have a lot of other exciting things coming up. I think we've been working on the student services thing that is going to be launched fairly soon. In January, we're hoping to have a workshop week where we can have completely dedicated towards career development. You'll have the opportunity to have some mock interviews, mock presentations, advice, live advice on different things. So I would highly encourage you to follow us on all of our social media platforms, really, so you can get the notifications and the announcements that we make. And also, if you're not on our listserv and if you're a member of ESA, please do join our listserv so that we can send you those updates via our newsletters as well. So I think those are all the things that I would like to highlight here that we have upcoming. Be with the governing board meet the governing board event coming up next week, and we're super excited for that. So hopefully you guys all join us there. And again, thank you so much for everybody that joined today's webinar, and I hope this was informative. We will be posting this on our YouTube channel shortly, and you will be, if you missed it today, you can definitely go and check it out in our YouTube channel.